Hello. Welcome to Enchanted Musings with Taurus Heart, where we will explore the world of digital spellcasting. Let's get started.
So you guys have been sending in a ton of stuff about digital spellcasting, like a lot of articles, forum discussions.
Really take it off.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's really curious about this idea of technology and witchcraft kind of coming together.
How it's changing things.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to deep dive into all that today.
Awesome.
Yeah. We've done the research, read through everything, and we're going to try to pull out the coolest stuff.
The most interesting parts.
Exactly. The nuggets of gold.
Love it.
So before we get too far, can you just give us like a working definition of digital spellcasting?
Like, what is it really?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Sure. So basically, it's taking those core principles of witchcraft, the intentions, the kind of practices that have been around for centuries and finding ways to express them through technology.
Okay, so it's not about replacing your wand with an iPhone.
Right.
It's more about using these new tools to reach those same goals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about finding new avenues for the same energy and magical work. Gotcha. So it's like an evolution, not a replacement.
Exactly. And a really good example of that is the whole idea of virtual altars. Have you heard about those?
Oh, yeah. I've seen some pictures online. It's like a digital version of a physical altar, right?
It's more than just pictures, though. It's like creating a whole digital space dedicated to your practice.
Okay. So it's interactive. You can actually like arrange things. And what kind of stuff would go on a virtual altar?
Well, all the things you'd find on a traditional altar. Candles, crystals, herbs.
Yeah.
But in digital form.
Yeah.
And the act of arranging those digital representations, it really makes you think about their meaning, how each element connects to your intention.
I can see that. It's almost like instead of inheriting your grandma's physical altar, you're building your own from scratch digitally.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that makes it very personal. There are apps and websites out there that give you the tools, but ultimately it's up to each individual to imbue it with their own energy and symbol.
So it's like a blank canvas for your magical practice.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say I wanted to create a virtual altar for attracting creativity. What kind of stuff might I put on there?
Well, what inspires you in the real world?
Okay, let me think. Maybe like a picture of my favorite painting.
Perfect.
A digital notepad and pen for jotting down ideas.
Love it.
Maybe some flowers for growth and inspiration.
Beautiful. And don't forget about the elements. You can have like a virtual fireplace for fire or a digital water fountain for water. It's all about symbolism.
That's so cool. And you could even change it up depending on what you're working on, right?
Absolutely. It's like having an infinite number of altars at your fingertips.
I love that. So we've got these personalized digital spaces, but what about the community aspect? Like traditionally, witchcraft has been about groups, covens, gathering together. Does that translate to the digital world?
Yeah, totally. In fact, it's actually opening up the practice to a whole new group of people who might not have a local coven or feel comfortable joining one in person.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, online covens are super popular now. Yeah, they're using platforms like Zoom, Discord, to connect witches from all over the world.
So instead of meeting in someone's living room, they're meeting in a virtual space.
Exactly. Imagine learning from a witch in Japan or Brazil, sharing spells and rituals that have been passed down through their lineage.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like the internet is breaking down geographical barriers and making witchcraft more accessible than ever.
That's definitely one of the most exciting things about it.
Yeah, it's connecting people in a whole new way.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about virtual altars, online covens, but I gotta be honest, when I first heard about digital spellcasting, I immediately thought about social media.
Me too.
Because, you see all these witches on TikTok, Instagram, and I was like, is this part of it?
It definitely is.
It is, okay.
Yeah. Social media is playing a huge role in how witchcraft is evolving.
Really?
It's not just about taking pretty pictures with crystals.
So there's substance behind the aesthetic.
Yes. There's a lot of genuine knowledge sharing happening on those platforms.
Wow. Okay, so like what are people sharing?
Well, you'll find people sharing their personal experiences, offering advice, and even demonstrating spells and rituals.
So it's like a digital grimoire, but more interactive and engaging.
Exactly. And for people who are new to witchcraft or don't have access to local resources, social media can be a really valuable tool.
I can see that. It's like a gateway into the world of witchcraft.
Yeah, and it's all about making magic accessible and relevant to people's lives today.
So it's not just about using tech and spellcasting, but also about how technology is shaping the entire landscape of witchcraft.
You got it. And that leads us to another really interesting area, the rise of specialized apps for witches.
Oh, yeah. Like moon phase trackers, tarot apps, digital spell journals.
Exactly.
It's like having a whole toolkit for modern witchcraft right in your pocket.
Right. And these apps aren't just convenient. They can actually really enhance your practice.
Okay, how so?
Well, take a moon phase tracker, for example. Knowing the current phase of the moon is super important in many witchcraft traditions, and having an app that reminds you and gives you all the details can be really helpful for planning your rituals.
Makes sense.
And a digital spell journal. It's like a private, secure space where you can record your intentions, track your progress, reflect on your experiences.
Like the digital equivalent of a handwritten grimoire.
Yeah, exactly. But with added features and functionality.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued by all of this. But before we go any further, I got to ask about the one thing that's been bugging me.
Uh-huh. I think I know where you're going with this.
Emoji spellcasting.
Ah, yes.
How does that even work? I mean, I love a good emoji, but using them for magic, that's just wild.
I know it sounds a little out there at first, but when you break it down, it's actually a really clever adaptation of an ancient practice called sigil magic.
Oh, okay. Now you're going to have to explain that.
All right, so sigil magic involves creating a symbol that represents your intention and then charging it with your energy to manifest that intention in the real world. Gotcha.
So instead of drawing these intricate symbols, we're using emojis as a shorthand for our magical desires.
Okay, so like a heart emoji for love.
Exactly.
Money bag for prosperity.
Yep.
Lightning bolt for power.
You got it. Emojis have become such a powerful form of communication.
They're like modern-day hieroglyphs.
I love that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And by arranging those emojis in a specific sequence and charging them with your intention, you create a digital sigil.
But how do you charge an emoji with your intention?
You can use visualization affirmations, even incorporate it into a larger spell or ritual.
Okay, and then you just like send it out into the digital universe.
Pretty much, yeah. Post it on social media, send it in a text message, whatever feels right.
It's like sending a magical text message.
I like that. And while it might seem unconventional, it speaks to the creativity and adaptability of modern witchcraft.
So it's about taking these ancient practices and finding ways to make them relevant to our modern lives. Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about all of this. It's not just about the tech itself, but about how witches are finding ways to integrate magic into their digital lives in really meaningful ways.
I'm loving this. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. Virtual altars, online covens, social media magic emoji spells, and we're just getting started.
I know, right? There's so much more to explore.
This is going to be good.
It really feels like magic is finding its place in the digital world.
Yeah, it's like all these new possibilities are opening up.
And, you know, that brings us back to virtual rituals.
Oh, yeah, those blew my mind when I first heard about them.
I know, right? The idea of doing a full moon ritual over Zoom just seems so strange at first.
Yeah, it felt kind of like, I don't know, like it was missing something.
But the more I thought about it, the more it started to make sense.
Really?
Yeah, think about it. Traditional rituals are all about creating a sacred space, right? Setting yourself apart from the everyday world.
Right, using candles, incense, maybe drawing a circle on the ground.
Exactly. And in a way, the digital space already is a circle.
What do you mean?
Well, it's separate from our physical surroundings, right? We enter it with a specific intention. It's like stepping into another world.
I never thought about it like that.
And just like in a physical ritual, you're gathering with others who share that intention.
Whether it's celebrating a Sabbath, doing a spell, or just meditating together.
Exactly. So in that sense, virtual rituals are really not that different from traditional ones.
Okay, so let's say I'm participating in a virtual full moon circle on Zoom. What would that actually look like? Are people like wearing robes and lighting virtual candles?
Well, every group is different, but there are definitely elements that echo traditional rituals.
Like what?
You might see people with their altars set up behind them, both physical and virtual. There might be chanting, guided meditations, or even virtual representations of ritual tools being passed around the circle.
Wow, so even though it's happening online, there's still a sense of ritual and symbolism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And many people actually find that the digital format helps them focus more.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Well, they're not distracted by the physical environment or by worrying about what other people think of them. They can just be fully present in the ritual.
That makes sense. So for someone who's new to witchcraft or maybe a little shy, a virtual ritual could be a good way to ease into things.
Definitely. And it also allows you to connect with people from all over the world.
Right. You're not limited by geography anymore.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned that YouTube is another platform for virtual rituals. What kind of stuff can people find there?
Oh, tons of things. Guided meditations, visualizations, even full-length rituals for all sorts of intentions and occasions.
So even if you're not part of an online coven, you can still participate in these rituals.
Exactly. It's a great way to explore different traditions and practices and see what resonates with you.
It's like having access to a whole library of magical experiences.
Exactly.
You know, one thing that keeps coming up for me is this idea that digital spellcasting is making magic more accessible to people who might not have had access to it before.
Absolutely. It's breaking down barriers of geography, socioeconomic status, social stigma, you name it.
People who might have felt isolated or excluded from traditional witchcraft communities now have a way to connect and practice on their own terms.
Exactly. And that's incredibly empowering.
Yeah, it's like the internet is creating a level playing field for magical exploration.
I love that. It's so true.
Okay, I'm totally getting on board with this digital magic revolution, but I have to ask, are there any potential downsides or challenges that we should be aware of?
That's a really important question. And the truth is, there are always potential pitfalls when it comes to anything new and powerful.
Like what?
Well, one potential downside is the risk of getting so caught up in the technology that you lose sight of the core principles of witchcraft.
So it's like the difference between using technology as a tool to enhance your practice versus letting it become the focus of your practice.
Exactly. The true power of magic lies within you, not in the apps or platforms you're using.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Right. And another concern is the potential for misinformation or exploitation. Just like with any online space, there are people who might try to take advantage of others.
Especially those who are new to witchcraft.
Right. So it's important to do your research, be discerning about the information you trust, and stick to reputable sources.
That's good advice. Now, before we move on, I wanted to circle back to something we talked about earlier, traditional witches' perspectives on digital spellcasting. We've talked about how some people might be skeptical, but are there any aspects of it that they might actually appreciate?
That's a good question. I think one thing that even the most traditional witch might appreciate is the emphasis on intention and visualization that digital spellcasting often requires.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Because you're not so focused on the physical aspects of the ritual, you're forced to really hone in on your inner world.
Exactly. And those are fundamental skills in any form of magic.
Yeah.
So in a way, digital spellcasting can actually be a really good training ground for developing those skills.
So even if you're a diehard traditionalist, there might be some unexpected benefits to exploring the world of digital witchcraft.
Absolutely. It can help you deepen your understanding of magic and connect with a wider community of practitioners.
This has been such a mind-expanding conversation. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of digital spellcasting.
Me too. And the most exciting thing is that it's still evolving. Who knows what new forms of digital magic will emerge in the years to come?
That's what makes it so fascinating. It's like we're witnessing a whole new chapter in the history of witchcraft unfold right before our eyes.
And it's a reminder that magic is a living, breathing force that adapts and evolves with us.
Speaking of adaptation, I'm curious about something. We've been talking a lot about the practicalities of digital spellcasting, but what about the ethics? Are there specific ethical considerations that are unique to this digital realm?
That's a great question, and it's something that we definitely need to be talking more about as digital spellcasting becomes more popular. One of the biggest ethical considerations is the question of consent, especially when it comes to spells that involve other people.
So, for example, if you're doing a love spell, using someone's social media profile, is that ethical?
That's a tough one. In general, most witches would say that it's never okay to do a spell on someone without their explicit consent. And even if you do have their consent, you need to be really mindful of your intentions and make sure you're acting in their best interests.
Right, because even if you think you're doing something good, you might not have the full picture of what's best for that person.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that the digital realm isn't a neutral space. Our online interactions are constantly being shaped by algorithms and platforms that can influence our behavior and perceptions.
So we need to be aware of those influences and make sure we're not using digital spellcasting in a way that manipulates or exploits others.
Exactly. And it's also important to be mindful of the energy we're putting out into the digital world. Just like in the physical world, our thoughts and intentions have power and they can impact others.
So it's all about being responsible and intentional with our digital magic, just like we would be with any other form of magic.
Absolutely. Digital spellcasting can be an incredible tool for personal and collective transformation, but it's important to use it wisely and ethically.
Okay, those are some really important things to keep in mind. Well, it sounds like we've covered a lot of ground today, from virtual altars and online covens to AI spells and VR rituals. The world of digital spellcasting is vast and constantly evolving.
It's definitely an exciting time to be a witch.
And a little bit overwhelming, too, to be honest. There's so much to learn and explore.
That's true, but I think that's part of the beauty of it. It's a journey of discovery, and there's always something new to learn.
So where do we go from here? What does the future hold for digital spellcasting?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think one thing is for sure. The intersection of magic and technology is only going to become more intertwined in the years to come.
I'm both excited and a little scared to see what that looks like.
Me too. But I think as long as we approach it with an open mind and a commitment to using magic for good, we'll be all right.
Well said. Okay, so let's talk about those mind-blowing examples.
You ready to have your mind blown?
Yeah, hit me.
All right, so one area that's really pushing the boundaries is AI and magic.
AI and magic.
Using artificial intelligence to actually generate spells.
Whoa, wait, hold on. AI that can write spells?
It sounds like sci-fi, but it's real.
So how does that even work?
Basically, you feed the AI tons of data about magic.
Like what kind of data?
Like magical traditions, symbolism correspondences, all that stuff.
So it's like creating a giant digital grimoire for AI to learn from.
Exactly. And then once it has all that knowledge, you can give it a specific intention, like, say, a spell for abundance.
And the AI will just write a spell for that.
Pretty much, yeah. It'll draw on all its knowledge and create a unique spell tailored to that intention.
That's both amazing and kind of scary.
Right.
Like, are we outsourcing magic to robots now?
It's a good question. And it's definitely raising some interesting ethical questions about, the nature of magic.
Yeah, because doesn't magic require, intention and energy and all that?
It does, and that's where the human element comes in.
Okay, so the AI isn't replacing witches. It's more like a tool.
Exactly. Some practitioners are using AI as a collaborator.
So they're working with the AI to, refine the spells and make them more personal.
Exactly. It's like a partnership.
That makes more sense.
And another area where technology is really shaking things up is virtual reality.
Oh, yeah, VR.
Imagine putting on a VR headset and suddenly you're in a forest grove.
Okay.
And you're performing a ritual with other witches from all over the world.
Like each of you has a little avatar.
Exactly.
Whoa, that sounds trippy.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are already VR platforms being developed specifically for magic. You can create your own virtual sacred spaces, interact with magical tools and ingredients. It's incredible.
It's like the next level of virtual altars.
Exactly, but way more immersive.
But wouldn't it feel kind of artificial? Like, how can you connect with nature when you're in a digital world?
That's a valid point.
Mm-hmm.
But some practitioners believe that the digital realm is just another layer of reality.
I've never thought about it like that.
And for some people, VR might actually make magic more accessible.
Oh, how so?
Well, imagine someone with a disability that prevents them from going out into nature.
Yeah.
VR could allow them to experience the power of a forest ritual, even if they can't physically be there.
Wow, that's a really cool way to look at it.
And then there's augmented reality.
Augmented reality, like Pokemon Go, but for spells.
Kinda, yeah. Imagine seeing magical symbols and energy overlaid on your real-world environment.
Through my phone or something.
Exactly. You could use AR apps to create a virtual altar in your living room or track the movements of the planets.
That's insane.
It's really blurring the lines between the digital and physical worlds.
So it seems like the possibilities for digital spellcasting are endless.
They really are, and we're just at the beginning.
I can't even imagine what it'll be like in 10 or 20 years.
It's going to be wild.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have gone deep.
From virtual altars and online covens to AI spells and VR rituals, the world of digital spellcasting is vast and ever evolving.
And super exciting.
It's definitely challenged some of my preconceived notions about magic.
Me too.
So what's the takeaway here? What do we want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that digital spellcasting is a powerful force that has the potential to change the world.
For better or for worse, right?
Right. But I believe that if we approach it with an open mind and a commitment to using magic for good, then the possibilities are truly limitless.
I like that. So as we continue to explore this new frontier of magic, let's remember to be mindful, intentional, and ethical.
And to always stay curious.
Well said.